Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. So hello and thank you for joining us for today's BI360 webinar presented by InterDyn, BMI, and Solver. BI360 is the Excel and web-based budgeting and reporting suite for Dynamics and Intacct. You'll see through today's presentation that BI360 provides self-service BI to business users and is a complete Excel and web-based reporting, budgeting, dashboard, and collaboration solution with a pre-configured data warehouse that integrates all of your data sources for complete insight. Because BI360 comes out-of-the-box integration to many major ERP systems including Dynamics NAV, GP, AX, SL, Microsoft CRM, as well as Intacct, it only takes a fraction of the time to get implemented compared to other business intelligence solutions. Solver is a longtime partner of InterDyn BMI, and the BI360 product will be presented today by Tom Franks, VP of Sales for Solver, and has been working with Microsoft Dynamics since 1999. He's worked in several roles for both partners and ISV, and currently lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, and hopes to miss that next big snowstorm. Now, just a few housekeeping items before we get started today. If you have any questions during today's presentation, please use the question box feature or the raised hand icon, which are both located on the dashboard on the right-hand side of your screen. We will have some time for Q&A with Tom at the end of today's presentation, and we'll be answering all the questions submitted then. Also, if you're having any difficulty of any sort with viewing the presentation or demo, please send in a message and we will do our best to get this issue resolved. And that should cover all the housekeeping, so take it away, Tom.
Thank you, Michael. And again, I'm Tom Franks. Solver is a company that we only do BI360 as our current product. We have over 1,300 customers using that now in 40 countries, and that's in 7 years of BI360. We're a strategic partner of InterDyn BMI and have been working with them for years upon years. We did a survey a little bit ago as to why we were selected, and the top 3 reasons were that we're very easy to use. We have a complete business intelligence suite and strong integrations to especially Microsoft Dynamics. You can see a bunch of awards over here we've won. I'm not going to talk about that today, but I do want to mention that Gartner Group has done a pair of surveys. The first one is of CIOs, and they've asked what's the investment priority you have, and that was for last year, 2015. And the #1 answer was BI and analytics. And for a CIO, for them to answer that over top of more computers, which was the #2 answer, says a lot about how important BI and getting better information is to people. Survey 2 is of CFOs. And the top 3 there, and you can see they were pretty close, was performance measurement or dashboards, financial reporting and consolidation, and then budgeting, planning, and forecasting. And in truth, BI360 can do things on all of everything on this list as well. So that's kind of what we mean as a complete BI suite. Our modules we have 4 modules that we price. We have a reporting module that is Excel design in our reporting for the power users, as we call them. But when you run these reports, it can either be in Excel or through a browser or a web or through a mobile phone, your iPhone and Android. We also can have those reports emailed or pushed to you, as well as go into Excel or go into our web portal and call them up when you're ready. We have a planning module. That's our fancy name for budgeting and forecasting. We do those together. So we design those in Excel, but when it comes time to enter that data, you can use Excel or you can use the web, and that also helps us. We have some workflow that deals with that as well. We have a module that actually technically we call it Portal now, but it's also dashboard module. There we design these in the web and of course view those over the web. And you'll see a lot of our examples today will be done from the optional data warehouse that we have. So we work with, and I think that's on the next screen, with the dotted lines on our architecture slide, you can see we go straight from Dynamics, either GP, SL, NAV, or AX, straight into our reporting tool or straight into the dashboards, and you do not need to have an extra data warehouse to work with that, and if all the data that you need to work on is in that Dynamics, and if your companies are set up that way, you can do that. But we have an optional data warehouse, and that allows you to not only do some fancier things with data from Dynamics, but also pull data from your CRM system, be it Microsoft CRM, Salesforce, something else, and other data sources. Maybe it's payroll and ADP or somebody else. Maybe it's an industry-specific package for billing or purchasing or resource planning or something else. You can also even bring in data from unstructured sources like Google Analytics to get website data in there. Sometimes that's important to a company. If something else is more important, put that in the data warehouse. And then last, we have that ability to see these reports over the web through Excel or through email, and any combination of that you wish to do. So without any further ado, let's spend the rest of the time in the software. And I'm going to start with where most end users are going to come in, and that is taking a look at our portal. So as I go to the portal, the first thing I'm going to do is log in. And it is important to know that that is the same login that you have on your system. That brings up the permissions that you have for databases, and then within BI360 we can do it for any dimensions that you want to, things like location, company, profit center, cost center, customer, territory, whatever it is. We can set up security so people are only seeing the things they should see. And of course this is reporting, so they're not changing anything in time. If I take a look at my favorites in this dashboard, I can see this. I have a couple of ways to see this. My favorite is what I call the Rolodex, but we can also show it as thumbnails, or if you like a text-based version of that. But I want to show a couple of these dashboards that we've done, and these are just examples. You can create your own dashboards for exactly what you want to. They use the same field names and the same structure as the Excel reporting I'll show in 5 minutes, so it's kind of a learn once and keep going thing. So here I have our company, and then I have data that you typically don't see in most dashboards, but can be very helpful. An industry average of people in our industry, the computer industry in this example. And then I have Microsoft and Oracle, two competitors, public companies, can get their data from something like Yahoo Finance. In our data warehouse, we can store that data and be able to check and see if our growth margins are similar to our key competitors, and hopefully our trends are similar or maybe even a little better off than their trends. Second, I have an example of a CEO dashboard. So you'll see a lot of the things you might typically see. I have revenues, both budget to actual in the current month, but also the last 12 months. My CEO likes the last 15 months. So that can all be set up how you wish. Same with profit and loss. But then there's two other things that they had. The first is headcount. That could come either from a statistical ledger, I'm drilling down to department here, or come from ADP or whoever your outsourced payroll provider is. And then secondly, I have these website leads here. Maybe in this organization, website leads is the best way to tell how revenue is going to do a year from now, more so than anything in CRM, in a specific opportunity on a 3 or 6 month sales cycle. Third thing is this is a CFO dashboard. So in this one, I'm going to introduce something that we have beyond the drill down, and this is the drill around. So when I click on this corporate USA company in a second, 4 out of the other 5 dashlets are going to change. And that's because we set it up to share the same company. So the top 10 receivables and payables and liquidity ratios are changing for each of those. If I move back, it'll redraw them as well, or if I choose another company. Again, we'll see that different. I think this one in the upper right-hand corner didn't change, but that's all how someone who designs these would put them together to have them update or not update when you choose certain companies, or it could be department, division, territory, anything else that you care to. Then the last dashboard I want to show is one. This one happens to not be from the data warehouse. This one happens to be live towards Dynamics, specifically Dynamics SL and some of their project data. And I just say that because you might recognize a little bit of it if you're an SL user. But in this case, we've added one last thing. We've added a text field here, or a text view. And again, if I click on this, we've set it up to change the project summary and detail for just that one project as opposed to all of them, and we're able to look at those as well. So again, I can even click in on the project details, cost categories, you might call them, and take a look at those as well. Last thing that I have in the portal, and let me bring one of these up, is I have a set of reports. This one happens to be a balance sheet. And this is a report written, not a dashboard, a report written in Excel. And in this case, I have the ability to see this. My drill down in these cases is a right click. So I can take a look at the transactions that make that up. I also on this can download this report to Excel if I wish. And then the last thing that's kind of neat is I'm able to share this. So we have a QR code here, so if someone's on a smartphone or tablet, they could scan that and get to the report quickly. We can also send it as an email. Both of those sends this really long link that we're putting in here. They do have to read this. They do have to have security and be able to see the data in there. So we're not being unsecure in this. But it's often a very nice way that two people can have the conversation about what's going on in this case, the balance sheet, and see the same data at the same time, even if they aren't in the same place at the same time. Okay. So I'm going to kind of put this portal away for just a minute. I want to show one of our reports in Excel, and I have that one up here. I'm going to run this. Actually, this report is already run, so I'm actually going to put my little menu away, and I want to show this report. And this report actually does the work of, at least in Dynamics, and we work with Intacct as well as Dynamics. Didn't mention that at the beginning. 4 different Microsoft tools that would start with this. So the first is this is a profit and loss report with variances. So a lot of the things here are the same that you would see before. If I right-click and go past the normal things you see on a right-click, I can see the transaction or transactions that make that up. Secondly, I have formatting here that is indicative of Excel. And some of the beauty of this is that the conditional formatting is already here. We can use the stoplights like I did here, or any of the other conditional formatting that we wish. Even have, I think, a data bar color scale on column AF as well. And that, again, just changes as your actual green's good, red's bad type of thing. We also have the ability to hide show, in this case the first 9 months of the year, and it's a great way to be able to take a long report and fit a lot of it on one screen. We did that here in the expenses as well, so we can see the salaries totaled, or we can see each and every GL natural account number and see that through as well. And we can open up as few or as many of these as we want to. Of course, the number 2 here opens everything up, and 1 brings it back. That's standard Excel functionality, but we can put that in here. Last, even some of our formulas are standard Excel. So you can see the variance is E minus F this year versus last year, and we can do that. So people who are writing these reports don't have to relearn everything. They can use a lot of the Excel stuff. They already know to do this. So besides this financial statement, we also have here a news or a narrative report. We saw our clients writing this stuff in Word, every quarter or every month or every year before the annual meetings, board meetings, whatever. So to say the profitability this month was great, net income of 88,000 compared to 61,000, so on and so on. This is actually a Excel concatenation, so it's a little bit clever use of Excel, but it's not real hard. And then we've also brought in revenue and other data as well, and of course graphs and so on. If I run this report again for another month, it will change the text. And let's go ahead and take a quick look at that. So I'm going to actually go back 2 months. Maybe things weren't as great 2 months ago, so I'm going to run this again. It's going back out to the data warehouse, grabbing our data, pulling it back in. It actually took 7 seconds, says that way at the bottom. And now it says the profitability this month was weak. We had an income of $57,000 compared to $80,000 the year before. And again, so we switched from great to weak here. That's important. Our percentages changed to, if we scroll down, the secret underneath this is we actually took that variance of negative 27% and that changed it from weak to great, and I think we have a nice and a few other adjectives in there as well. So we've replaced Management Reporter with the P&L variance I showed you first, Word with this one. Then we have in here, I'll go back to the month with more data, run this again, and then we also have sales, payables, and receivables information in here as well. So I can see my top 10 vendors and the AP invoices they have and when they're due. Same for the top, we did 15 sales, top 10 customer receivables. All of that is here. We are pulling multiple tabs from different modules into the same report. In fact, in the news, we're pulling all of them together in here, and that's something you can't do. Management Reporter and FRX in that Microsoft world is general ledger only reporting. Intacct does the same type of thing. Different reporting for sales and payables and so on. That's silly. Learn one tool. Use it for all of this. So you can mix these together. And we call this one the auto narrative. Sometimes we can call it whatever you wish. So you've seen a report and how it runs. What I want to do now is write a report from scratch, because that's really the key. How long does it take a power user? Do they have to be a programmer, or can just an accountant do it? With BI360, we really do. We have a 2-day training class on this, and we train business users, accountants, COOs, financial analysts, those types of folks to do this. And I'm going to go ahead and do this. So first I have this layout editor. I'm going to move it over to the right. I won't need it till the end of what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a trial balance. And I'm going to actually write it. I am going to do it twice, but the first time I'm just going to do a simple account number and a comparative trial balance. So I'll be a little fancy. The first thing I want you to notice is that we've done metadata to create these fields the way that you would want to see them as a business user. So I'm going to draw in the account number. I'm going to have a wizard. I'm going to make a new row every time the account number changes. We already have the description under here. We'll bring that in. Go ahead and make that field a whole bunch wider. Make these a little wider too. And then the third thing, if I look at these in detail, if I hover over here, there's a SQL account name, and again, it's a bit longer. If I go over some other ones, they get really long and complex. All of that is done by our metadata, so all you really have to know is I want the monthly amount, and I'm going to bring that in twice. Then I have over here my date functions. So I can do period to date or year to date or any of these date functions that I want here. I'll make column D year to date. I'll make column E last year to date. I'll do a variance, do the formula, that is D minus E. Again, that's standard Excel stuff. And before I run this officially, I'm going to take just a couple of seconds. We'll do the bold and italics, make the font here extra big, and we'll take these amount fields and do dollar signs. I don't like decimals, so I decrease that so they don't show anymore. And then we're going to run this report. It asks what period. And again, notice it said this year, last year. It didn't say 2015, 2016. That helps a lot next year when I run the same report. So here's my report. So it got longer, and that's huge. I do have that right-click drill down. So again, if I right-click here and do my drill down, I'll see all the transactions that make that up. And then secondly, again, this short report became long. That's due to something we call the expanding button. And this is really one of the keys to our success. We did Excel 2007 is when we first did this. It's 9 years old now, but we started writing 2 years before we released the product. That allowed us to do an XML call. That's the technical name of it. But essentially, we're allowed to do this expanding. Other tools, you can do a range and print the total only. Here we can print the range and print everything in it, maybe with blank records, maybe not. If I want to show just some of my GL accounts, I could do that too. So again, we can put all of these in. Sometimes I like to show a trial balance without the 9,000s. They're a little different in this chart of accounts. So again, we'll go ahead and do this and run it. And then I'm going to do one twist on this report before we move on. But again, one row becomes, what, 50, 80 different ones. So I'm going to do a twist here. And when I did this report initially on the general ledger, I didn't do anything with the department. So department, again, that's just one of our different fields here, or dimensions. And again, think cost center, profit center, location, something like that. So now what we've done is I put in the description here, and I am going to edit this and make this so it asks every time we run the department, and I chose the option of sheet per value. So as I run this, let's go ahead and take a look at what it does. These are our 6 departments. I'm going to highlight them all, and I'm going to run this again. So now as it runs it, it's going to expand the rows. We saw that before, but it also spreads it out to each and every tab. So I now can see a tabular or departmental balance sheet here as well. If I wanted to do some expanding on columns, I could have done that as well. So here is my a little report I wrote. Again, just a couple of minutes to be able to put this through. It is Excel. I can do the save as if I wanted to name this report, put it out there. I'm just going to let it go. And I'm going to show one more report before I move on to budgeting. And that is, this is a report that I have. This one I'm not doing off the data warehouse. It actually says GP, Great Plains. And again, this would be the same if I did it for SL or NAV or AX, but I wanted to show something off the payables a little more than I did before. And I also wanted to show off some of the metadata that we have for Dynamics GP. So the first thing is I'm going to run this report, and then I'm going to we'll redesign it. well, okay, so there's the report. Again, not bad. We got the company name, got the amount, got the date, and so on. But let's give this a makeover. We'll take this left click. I'm just going to get rid of that vendor name. I'm going to go up to my vendor transactions, and I have all of these fields, including all the ones in the vendor, that I can put in. And we kind of had this gray line reserved for the vendor. So I'm going to put the vendor name up here. And I'm going to go ahead and put the city up there, because sometimes there's usually only one vendor name per city, but across the country they duplicate a little bit. And then on this line here below, I had the document date in there, but I didn't have the document number, so I'll move that in. And I didn't have due date. I'm going to put due date over here. And then I think the last one I'll put in is this transaction description. And again, maybe that's the same size as the vendor name. I kind of have my two things. I'm going to do one last thing here, and this is on one of my other reports, is to do the group ungroup feature. And that allows me to see this in detail or not, depending how I want to. So if I want, so now that I'm seeing it in detail, of course I have my travel company, I have all of the descriptions in here. Hopefully your descriptions will look more like expense report and the number as opposed to beginning balance. That really just came from our demo data from Microsoft. Isn't that great in this Fabricam company? But if I want to see it in summary, I can just see it. There's my total per vendor. And again, if we want to really look at Allinson's property or the travel, we can do exactly that. So easy to change these. I have all of that AP data out there. I have, drag in some purchase order fields if you need to. Make these reports what you need them to be. It's drag and drop. It's not programmer stuff. So while I'm here, I'm going to actually jump in, and I want to talk about one thing before I show budgeting, forecasting, planning, and that is our publisher tool. So the portal and the Excel, I ran all these reports on demand, so you can have users who are end users and they can just run the reports. The power user creates the reports from scratch or changes them, gives them the makeover like I just did that payables report. But then secondly, we have the ability to publish these reports automatically. And here I think I have a couple of reports that I have for my end of month, P&L, a balance sheet, a cash flow. I can take all of these reports and then I can send them out either as a workbook or all the other options that are there. I can either send them by email or to a folder or something else. Gosh, put them on paper and so on, and then pick the users that I want to send them to. Secondly, I have this as a merged PDF, kind of an archive type thing, so we can do 2 cycles on the same report. I could either set that up and schedule it to run automatically, but monthly reports, I like to press the Run Now button, make sure that last journal entry is posted, make sure everything looks right, and then run it. But can set up weekly, daily, whenever payroll's done type of reports, show those out automatically, push them to people as opposed to the other ones where someone has to say, oh, let me go check the report and see how much cash I have. Okay, so that is our publisher. It's a great tool. The other nice thing about publisher is you can send these reports to people who are not named users of BI360. So there's often a set of people who only get 1 or 2 reports a month. You don't have to have them as part of this. They don't get to do that right-click drill down, but they do get to see the reports. So I'm going to talk about planning, and that's budgeting and forecasting. The first thing, and kind of 2 things that we have with budgeting and planning. The first is that every template that I show you for budgeting is written with our reporting tool. So you probably noticed that, but I'm going to have a bunch of examples. I'll show you 2 or 3 or 4 of them, but they are only examples. They're not the only way to do something, and that is so you can make these your own. Secondly, I'm going to do this example as just an end user, not a power user like I was before, and I'm going to be one person is with one department in one of 4 companies, so I'm about one of 20 some people doing this first level budgeting, and someone gave me a baseline budget, the administrator did, and my fiscal year is a calendar year as I do this. So let's go ahead and take a look. Assigned only to Tom Franks is some budget templates. Most people probably only have 2, 3, or 4 of these. I have a few more just so I can demonstrate easily. And I'm going to start with my overhead expenses. So I'm bringing this up. I have a very short template. So I have operating expenses. I have some new account area, and then I have accounts budgeted on other forms. I'll show some of those other forms, but that way I can get the total expenses of my department and my company, my little part of the world here, ready to go. So again, it remembers, and with security knows I'm only on this one entity. I'm only in this one department. I'm doing my budgeting 3 months before the end of the year. That's pretty common. And then I have my which budget, which forecast. You can have as many of those as you want to. No limit. I'm going to press run. Rows and columns are going to expand. You've seen that before. It's not going to actually mess with you here. I'm going to put this little thing away. But first I have everything that's green or tan, I'm going to enter data in. Things that are blue, they're off limits. I don't enter data there. I have last year over here. I have 9 months of actual, 3 months of forecast. That'll help keep me straight here. If I scroll down again, I have those accounts budgeted on other forms, payroll stuff mostly. And then I have this year versus last year. So again, I've got more red than green and a lot of yellow, so my baseline's not too bad, but let's go ahead and fix that up, see if we can make that any better. So first, gifts and donations, we'll look at that. That's extra simple. If we want to, do a little extra gift in November, can do that. I typed the number like normal Excel. It did say there for a second. It was writing that to the data warehouse, including the fact that Tom did it at 1:34 in the afternoon Eastern time. It writes that also. So that's the first way to do it. Really the same as any other Excel. Second way that we can do some of this, and let me do this through advertising, and I'm going to go to my enter data button here in my BI360 planning tab, is then I have something, and I call this the spread tool. So I click this, it's going to take the top half of the screen and have it look just for the advertising button. And then I have last year's up here at the top, and then I have some details here, but I can take any of these if I want to, and if I wanted to change it, I could, I could just choose to spread this, quarterly if I wanted to, or if I wanted to automatically spread that evenly or spread that trend-based based off last year. I could do any of that. I'll go down to the next one if I wanted to just reduce it, a few percentages. I clicked on that. It's going to catch up in a second and show me the percentage that it reduced. And then the third one, I'll go ahead and do that too. But I can change these however I wish to and look at these details and make it what I want, and then I'll save that back to Excel. And it'll give me a little happy message that it worked. I'm going to do this again on the marketing. That is one of my bigger expenses in this department, so let's see what we can do with that. So again, I'm bringing up my window just about this. And in this case, maybe what we can do is I want to make these my own. We may do our marketing, TV, print, web, and maybe this year we're going to introduce event marketing as well. So maybe we want to drag down minus 32% on the TV. Maybe we'll go down 10%. I clicked 100. Okay, that's not a good idea. 10% on the print, but then we're going to go up on the web, and then maybe we'll introduce an event in sometime in the middle of the year. And I'll give that just a second to catch up, and then we can type in our event marketing. I can put a note over here. Sponsor one of those outdoor concerts and put that in. So there we go. We've updated that. Put that down. I can go through all the other ones that I want to do, and there at the very end, I've hopefully, I got rid of all but one of my red arrows, so I'm doing better. When I'm ready to save this, I will save data to my data warehouse manually. We want to do this when we are kind of ready. We manually do this because, again, you want to check things out. You want to make sure it's right. Then you want to save it to the data warehouse. So, okay. In fact, actually, they even have the, so we actually are doing the increase on each of these rows between this year and last year. So all that crazy stuff I did on marketing made the total go down 8.7%. That's good. I like that. And our giving went up 84%. I like that too. Okay, so we're about ready to save this and move on. And again, this is our other expenses template. So I did have this accounts budgeted on other forms. And let's go ahead and explore what that's going to do. So that one comes in two parts. The first thing that we have is something called the assumptions template. And this is actually really brilliant. So here we have the things that we need to know about budgeting that hardly ever change, or maybe they'll change from 2016 over 2015, and we need a place to keep those. And the examples I have here, you probably could think of a few others. For payroll, what's that maximum in those percentages? If that changes for another year, go ahead and put that in. What's our contribution each month for health care? On down, even for travel, we have some things. What's the average airfare? What's the hotel rate, and so on. So maybe our hotel goes down to $450. We'll save these updates and put that back in, and again, it saves that to the data warehouse. But we use these assumptions in the other templates. We're storing that data one time in our data warehouse. We're there ready to go. And if I jump into one of these other templates, and I'll start with personnel, then we use some of that data. So in this case, personnel is limited to my department and my entity, the people I deal with all the time, and quite honestly, I do already know what my team makes, so nobody else can see this. We have done versions of this without employee names or without some other things to help keep security where you want it, but notice our employees are going to go out now. If that data is from ADP, we bring it into the data warehouse. If it comes from Dynamics or Intacct, even better. If it's another provider, to be honest, if we can do ADP, we can do anybody else. So I have my employees here, and then I have here the ability to run through, and we can add some extra information for each one of these. So if, for example, one of our people is eligible to retire, we can put in that they may retire in August. We'll put in a new administrative assistant, hire the replacement, and we'll be smart here. We'll hire them in July. They're full-time. Annual salary, and again we recalculated back an hourly rate. And we have another section where we talk about when we do our annual review. Sometimes it's related to hire date. We could do a formula there. Often we find out it's not. And then we can, of course, put in, the default, might be 3,000. If you'd rather put in dollars, you can do that too. If there's bonuses or commission or other variable pay, you can put that in. And as I scroll to the right, and then actually I can even copy and paste this. We'll say everybody's eligible for benefits, well, except Chris on the spouse's plan. So we're ready to go now. To the right, I have a whole bunch of fields in blue or even white. We don't touch those, but this is all that salary gross to net. These are standard Excel formulas. They're protected. You can't accidentally change them. But they're here. Notice our retiree went down to 0. That was good. And again, we have all of this other stuff. When I get to FICA things, let me go back just a few things here. It brought in from that assumptions tab our rate, our maximum, that type of stuff. So we have those, we're ready to go, and so on. So again, all the way gross to net out to the right we do. Even full-time equivalents, 1 month we got an extra employee or two when we're have our retirement transition. Have some part-time folks. And then at the bottom, I have all of this gross to net GL stuff here too. GL account number and so on. And again, this year, last year type of change. So that's an example of that. That is per person, not position control. We've done some of both of those as well. Last option, and I'll just show this one because it's a neat little use of what we've done here, and is we did one specifically for travel. So and actually a couple of years ago, we kind of did this in the expenses in those line item details that I showed on the marketing. Could have showed that is just as easy in travel. And then we had a client or two said, we do a lot more travel, and there's a lot more variables in there. So I just want to remind you for a minute about the assumptions we had on travel. Let me pull that out. So now if I run this travel one, it's going to bring in, again, my employees. And then just in yellow, we have a few things we're doing. And we get to say, okay, Charlotte's going to make 3 trips of 2 days each. And Clint is going to, he's only going to travel from July through December. And Charlie splitting is going to go through June. We'll let Charlie rent a car but not the other, and so on. Whatever we need to do to make this right. And then all the way to the right, we've kind of done those gross to nets and break it out per month. So again, our people who only do half a year, you can kind of see where they've put things in. We've taken those number of trips and then take that average hotel stay, the average parking fees, mileage rates, and so on, and then we have our total here as well. So kind of a neat way to do it. Again, if I scroll down, got the totals there as well, back to the GL accounts and departments and all of that stuff to put it in. So that's one way to do travel. There's many others. There's no right way to do this for everybody, just the one that fits best for your organization. But that's a nice way to make sure everybody's, everybody, the 20 people entering this, they don't have to all come up with their average hotel rate on their own. So I've put in some budgeting. In our budgeting, we usually have some, sequential approvals. So we usually do that by date ranges. And then once that budget's done, of course, it can be used in those financial statements again. But the last thing that I wanted to show you is we also do forecasting. So we have a forecast option. I'm going to start with this forecast option just because it shows off one or two more formula things than other ones. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. Again, I'm running it for just one department, just for my company. And I'm doing this, actually let's move the date out to 2015-09. Oh, my bad. All right, I apologize. I have a, this one went to a different version of the database. Let me try just the other one real quick. Okay, so in this case, again, we did it for the first 9 months. They're in blue, but then now we can update the last 3 months to see, how we're doing. So, we've been doing 700,000 a month. If we think that last month's only going to be 900,000 to finish out the year, we can put that in. If we think we might have a better October, again, put that in, see our totals, see how that matches, and again, got expenses, got a nice little graph at the bottom, of course, all those Excel things that we can put in. The other one I was going to show you, you actually put in the total, and it figured out the 3 months average to get to the total. It's Excel, so you can either enter the goal and calculate the details, or do it the other way, enter the details, have it calculate the totals. It's your choice. Of course, we save that data back to the forecast and put that in, and if I'm doing, again, just Department 300 and just Entity SUS, get 10 or 20 other people to do their parts of the world, roll it up, and then you've got a very quick forecast for the rest of the year. So that's forecasting, and that's a neat option. Again, make those the way you want to. In fact, one of the stories I do like to tell is that we had company in the first year, they did their budgets, they did this, they did a forecast like this, and then they started thinking, well, Tom, how did you really know that was 900,000 here? Why don't you go get your CRM data, do the forecast, tell us what the forecast for December is. Don't take it exactly from CRM, you know, right size it in your head and tell us what it is, but look at the detail. So they flipped it then. So they went and for the next 3 to 6 months ahead of time, got the forecast from CRM, weighted, put it in for a department, and then they could update it manually from there. See the details if they needed to. Same thing on some of the expenses. See the details that came from. 9 months since your budget, you've hired people or you haven't. Go get that information, help recalculate your benefits and your workers' comp rates. So all of that can be done too. The better you get at forecasting, the more data you're going to need for things that aren't yet in your accounting system, right? They're 3 months out, but their data is somewhere else in your computers most of the time. And it's generally more accurate than me typing in that number. All right, so that is kind of the overview of BI360 I wanted to do. Mike, I know we had asked for some questions in the chat box, so if you can see if you have any of those, I'll be happy to answer it for the few minutes we have left.
Okay, great. So yeah, we did have a few questions come in. The first of which, and I may slaughter this name, so bear with me. This tool reminds me of Hyperion, which I believe is from Oracle. This required back office staff to build and maintain the various management reports. How is this different?
I'm sorry, last sentence?
How is this different?
So Hyperion, and I'm not a big expert on it, but it did work in many ways similar to what our data warehouse does. So you copy data from other systems. We do that today with SQL integration services on Dynamics. We use a web service on Intacct and sync that data in automatically. And then yes, we can use Hyperion used often an Excel-based tool to access that data warehouse to do reporting. So in some ways that's quite similar. The nice thing is, because of SQL and today's technology and some of the other tools that I didn't show you today on security and other things, you don't need an IT person to manage BI360 like you said you did for Hyperion. So it is all automatically updated from the data warehouse. Just make sure that worked and then run your reports. Great question. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Another one we got in was, what version of Excel is required?
Excel 2007 or higher. So if you're on Excel 2003, we need you to upgrade, but 2007, 10, 13, the new 16, they all work on BI360. So thanks for that. The only other one I'll mention is that if you have Office 365, we use the local version of BI360. That's the one that allows plugins for like we have. If you're using Google Analytics, sorry, it needs to work on Excel.
Okay, great. Another one that we got in was, do I have to buy the entire suite or can I just purchase reporting?
Oh, you can just purchase the modules that you want. So, and I'm going back to this again, but yes, you can just buy reporting. You can do it with or without the data warehouse, with or without planning, and with or without the dashboards. You do need reporting as the core module for everything else that we do. But no, great question, and we have had a lot of folks start with one and increase over time. Of course, a lot of people start with reporting and keep it, and we've had people buy everything at once. So whatever you're ready for, we won't stand in your way. Great question.
Great. Thank you for that. And then another one we got in is, can you show a cash flow report?
Yeah, I guess I did mention that once or twice and didn't show it, so don't want to really be a... So I think I had one here in the So if I take a look into my portal, we'll go back to that one. Take a look at the favorites here. Got the P&L. There's a cash flow. So absolutely. So again, starts with the net income. That's all the, of course, P&L accounts, and then back out all the non-cash things that are going on from there, and you can get a cash flow. So sure, any format that you want. This one does the last 2 months. Again, that's your option if you want to see multiple months of the same year or this year, last year. It formats just like any other report. So great idea and question. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Tom. And do you mind switching back to the contact slide?
Sure.
So yeah, we haven't had any more additional questions. So if anything does come up, you can feel free to reach out to either your account executive or actually, do you think you could, is there a contact slide with our email address? I believe maybe it's number 8.
We do, yes.
There we go. So yeah, so if you guys do have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to the info@InterDyn BMI, and that will get to the right parties. And we'll also be sending out a follow-up email that will contain a link for the recording of the session, as well as a limited time offer for a 15% discount on any add-on module. So keep an eye out for an email from us, and that will contain details on more about both of these. And yeah, on behalf of everyone on Solver and InterDyn BMI, we just wanted to thank you again for your attendance and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much.